Okay, good evening everybody and welcome to the Working Mums Masterclass webinar for July. Thank you very much for joining us. I know we're all very, very busy, so we do appreciate taking your time out and hopefully locking yourself in a room somewhere with a cup of tea or a glass of wine in your trackies or your pajamas and taking the time out to listen to us tonight. So tonight we're actually going to be talking to Angela Council from the Amber Tree, which is a business based on the Northern Beaches, but Angela has a lot of online options available for mums too, and she's going to be talking to us about the foundations of living well and being proactive about keeping healthy and having a healthy life. So to start with, I'll just step through some housekeeping for you. So just to let you all know that legally I have to disclose that we are recording this webinar. The webinar ends up on our Working Mums Masterclass website. So if you need to run off or anything like that, that's fine. Or if you drop out at your end, that's okay. The recording will actually be there for you within a week to watch and listen to at your leisure. Now, the thing to remember as well is you can hear us, but we can't hear you. So you'll hear Angela presenting and myself, I can jump in and ask any questions that you may have. If you do have any questions, just pop them in the questions or the chat box, which is down the bottom right-hand side of your control panel. If you just click on the positive sign there, and you can type any questions in that you want into the box there, and I'll keep an eye out for that, and I can ask Angela any of those questions that you have. Feel free to comment in there too, if you've had an experience with anything that Angela's talking about, or if you've got your own tip, then feel free to put that comment in, and it's a really good way to keep the interaction at your end as well. If you have any technical problems, the 1-800 number is there. Grab a pen and paper and quickly write that down, and you can call Citrix, which is the technical platform we use for the webinar. And if your internet connection is dropping in and out and you're having trouble hearing us, you can use the landline number that is on the registration email too. Okay, and most importantly, the thing is to just kick back and relax and enjoy yourself. So the first thing I'm going to do is let's do a test just to make sure that the question box is working, and you can have a test with that. So tell me what you guys had for dinner tonight. You can lie if you like, that's not a problem. Especially if we've got Angela here as well, everyone will put healthy things in. So feel free to test it out and just drop the answers in your comment box. If you are tweeting, the hashtag is WMMwebinar. All right, so I will hand over to Angela. Like I said, she's a naturopath, qualified naturopath, an amazing businesswoman, and obviously a mum to 2 children, I think it is it Angela?
Yes,
yes,
a boy and a girl.
A boy and a girl, yep, and runs the Amber Tree Natural Health Centre. So I will pass that on over to Angela for the next 50 minutes or hour or so.
Thank you, Penny, and thanks to everybody for joining us. Can you move on to the next slide, please?
Certainly.
So just before I start, I actually just want to dedicate this to my niece who passed away on Friday. Her time was very short on this earth, but it was very sweet. And one thing I do want to, the thing this is about tonight is about living well and living a long and healthy life. So I want to be able to share this information with you so you can do that. So if you could just move on, please, Pen.
Yep.
Okay, so I really want to thank you for logging in and listening to me tonight. I do understand how hard it is to get the kids fed, ready for bed, and then to be able to take
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
You're right. It's okay. No, that kicks in a little bit later. Yep.
Okay. So as I said, I get what it's like when you're trying to get everything, all the kids ready, and you just want, because you want to be able to sit down and attend these webinars, and I know what type of an effort it is. So I do thank you for actually doing that. As a busy mum, I know that you often worry about keeping your family healthy. but you don't always look after yourself. I have so many clients that tell me that they're really careful about what their kids eat, but they actually don't eat well themselves. They're actually not setting a very good example to what their kids they need to be learning. So, and I'm sure some of you lie awake at night wondering whether or not you'll actually live long enough to play with your grandkids and your great-grandkids. So some of the things that I'm going to tell you about today is actually it's going to give you those keys so that you can live a long and healthy life. And I'm actually going to give you 9 tips that have been shown by research to actually increase your lifespan so that you can live a longer life. And I've actually chosen some of those to actually talk about a little bit more today. So if you could just move forward, please, Penny.
Yeah.
So I just want to tell you a story. Dan Buettner is a journalist for National Geographic. In around year 2000, he was actually in charge of a National Geographic project called Quests. And Quest was actually designed to actually get students interacting over the internet about different countries. So he was actually traveling to lots of different countries and finding out about their culture and things like that. Now he'd already heard about Okinawa in Japan, where there's 3 times as many centurions living in a small population than there is in the whole of the United States. So he actually went to Okinawa, and this is where he started the Blue Zone Quest. Dan Buettner actually realized that there are actually 6 different populations in the world that had a very high number of centurions living in them. And that's what was deemed the blue zones, because it was spread out across the world, and they call these the blue zones. And after a while, about 2005, he actually decided to actually go and visit all of these communities. And this time he didn't just go on his own. He took researchers, he took demographers, he took photographers, he took a whole team of people, and they spent months and months living with these people to try to determine why these people lived longer lives, why they had so many people that lived over the age of 100. And when he was going through, because a lot of people said, oh, well, it's just their genes, you know, it's genetics. But it wasn't, because when some of the young people were actually leaving those communities and moving to the Western world, and their mortality rates became the equivalent as if they live in the Western world their whole lives. So it was nothing to do with their genes. And then people said, well, you look at places like Okinawa, Sardinia, Costa Rica, they're kind of in the middle of nowhere. They're away from everything. So, you know, that's the reason. But Loma Linda didn't fit into this. I'm not sure if many of you know Loma Linda, but Loma Linda is in California. It's actually not too far down the road from Los Angeles. So it's actually right in the middle of the heartland of, you know, modern America. So that meant it wasn't to do with the location of where these things are. So they continued to look for other factors. And the research went for over 5 years, and Dan Buettner actually wrote the book, The Blue Zones. He's now actually creating blue zone communities based within the United States based on the research and the findings that they found, and actually seeing that in these communities, when they adopt the challenges of the blue zones and actually live a life close to the blue zones, that people are actually living longer and having less chronic disease. So Dan Buettner still does visit a lot of these populations in the blue zones that he saw over the last 10 years, and some of those centurions are still living. And he must be doing something right, because he's actually married to Cheryl Teagues, and if any of you remember her, she was actually one of Charlie's Angels. So I don't know if that also keeps him a bit young and vibrant. If we could just move on to the next slide, Penny, and I'll go through the 9 points for living a longer and healthier life.
Just as we go over, sorry, Angela, just as we go over to it, I just had to unmute myself because my kids were going to bed in the background. I've been to Sardinia. I'll be really interested to see what the connection is. It's really interesting. I've never heard of the Blue Zone before, but I've been to Sardinia, and one of the things that stuck with me was the food and the freshness of the food. Yes. It was just incredible. I had a ham and cheese sandwich, But it was it was the best ham and the best cheese and the best sandwich I have ever had because of its freshness. So it'd be interesting if that's
And
one of the...
it was all real? And it was all real food?
It was beautifully real, yeah. It was amazing. It was party in my mouth, so...
Well, I'll go through the 9 things that they found. I don't have a slide for this, so if you want to take notes on this, and I'll be giving you some recipes later on too, so if you've got a pen and paper with you, good idea to keep it close. So the 9 things that they found out that were common across all of these communities is the 80% rule. You stop eating when you're 80% full. Plant power, lots of veggies and less processed foods in your diet. Red wine, but that's to do with the type of red wine and drinking it in moderation. And unfortunately, I have to tell you that Australian red wine doesn't really hit it for the type of red wine. Australian red wine is actually quite high in preservatives and lots of other chemicals. But if you go to places like Sardinia where they actually make their red wine, and you will know that it's so totally different in taste to what we drink here. Something that you call plan de vida, and that's knowing your purpose in life. These people really all have a purpose in their life, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Belief systems. They all have a belief, and whether or not that's a religious belief or a spiritual belief, they have a belief in a larger being than themselves. Downshift. So they actually take a bit of time off. They work less, they slow down, they take lots of rest, and they actually have breaks and holidays. They move more. So we need to find ways that we can move mindlessly, and making moving unavoidable. You know, one of the worst things that ever happened for movement in our society was the creation of the remote control for everything. We don't actually have to get off our couches to do much these days. We can push a button and it gets done for us. So we're just not moving. Belonging. We need to create a healthy social network, and that's not always your family. Sometimes for some people and some younger people, that's their friends. Not too sure how Facebook fits into that, but you should have a healthy social network, and also your tribe. So that's making your family a priority. And once again, it's not necessarily your blood family. It may be your family of friends if you're really close to your friends in the same way as you are a family. So tonight I'm going to cover in detail what I believe the top 3 things are that you can actually do to live a longer and healthier life. Eat well, move more, and know your purpose. So if you could just move forward for me, Penny.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start with nutrition and eating well. Why do we need nutrition? Nutrition is what's required for our body to function. It's fuel. Just like you have to put petrol into your car or diesel into your car, depending on the type of car you have, you need to put fuel into your bodies. And like your car, if you don't put the right type of fuel into your car, it won't go. So if we don't put the right type of fuel into our bodies, they won't go either. So it's really important that we put high quality fuel into our bodies to keep it working. Nutrient deficiencies within the body causes stress. Poor digestion of food and the lack of nutrients causes stress. Toxins from processed foods cause stress, and increased stress requires more nutrition. So it's a big circle, and at basically the beginning of the end of the circle is nutrition. So what is nutrition? Nutrition comes from food, but not all food is nutritious. There's 2 types of food, and it's what I call is live food, and you can see a picture of that up on the screen. And the other is dead food, and you'll see that on any supermarket shelf in a package that's got a whole pile of chemicals inside it. Dead food has no nutrition. Live food comes from nature. It provides us with everything that we need. All the food that we require we can get from nature. We do not need to manufacture food. We manufacture food for different reasons. We manufacture it because there are shortages in some countries, and they believe that processed foods is the way to go because it's cheaper to make than actually teaching farmers how to farm properly. In a lot of cases, it's cheaper to make. In some cases, it's cheaper to produce processed foods than it is to grow natural foods. Obviously, there's a time factor. It takes a while to actually grow an apple from a seed to a fully grown tree with an apple on it. So that's a time factor there. Also, seasons. Our bodies were designed to eat with the seasons, but with food processing and food manufacturing, we can actually eat any food at any time of the year because they have worked out ways that they can actually save some of these foods so that you can eat them off season. And that's actually not that good for your body, because our bodies have been genetically molded from when we were cavemen, when they had to eat with the seasons. They didn't have 24-hour supermarkets that they can go to 7 days a week and had everything available all the time. That's not how our bodies have actually been designed. They're designed to actually eat the foods that were available, that were growing in the area. We weren't designed to be eating foods from outside of our area either. And whilst it's really great to have this wide diversity of foods, sometimes it's not always the healthiest option. So, and even if you're looking at it from an eco point of view, we should always be eating foods that are grown very close to where we live. So it doesn't actually have to travel, from the other side of the world. I'm not too sure why we need to be eating strawberries that come from South America when we grow them here. And as it is, strawberries really only have a very short shelf life. If you buy strawberries fresh off the farm, you will know that they only last a few days. So I don't know how we can fly them in from other countries and still have them fresh, sitting on our shelves, ready for us to eat them, and they still then last another week or so in the fridge. So that shows you that they're actually doing something to their fruit to actually make it last. It's not supposed to. So with processed food, despite what the labels might tell you, there's very little or no nutrition in those processed foods. Quite often what happens is the manufacturers are also marketers, and they know that people want certain nutrients because the consumers aren't silly. They know that we need some nutrients. So as a marketing thing, they actually put nutrients back into the food, so they can actually tell you that Cocoa Pops is high in B vitamins. Cocoa Pops is still a junk food, whether or not it's got B vitamins in it or not. But the thing is, the vitamins that they put back in there are generally synthetic vitamins. They're not the vitamins that they took out when they processed the food, and most often they're not the type of vitamins that our body actually requires. So most of that actually goes straight down the toilet. So even if you see with added B12s or added Cs and whatever, generally it's not making that much difference to your health. So eating 10 bowls of Cocoa Pop is not going to increase your B vitamins, but going and having a big salad will. And the other thing too with when it comes to nutrition, it's not just about what you eat, it's how well you actually absorb the nutrients. So if your digestive system isn't working properly, so it's not breaking the foods down, it actually won't absorb the nutrients anyway. So having a healthy digestive system plays a really big role in this as well. Now, one advice that I give to a lot of my clients when they come in and say, well, what should I buy? What do I need to look for on labels? I actually don't believe you should ever be reading a label on any type of food. If you're reading a label on a food, one, you probably won't understand it, and two, it'll have things on it that it's got chemical names in it, it's got numbers in it. If it's got all of that, it's not natural food. The only label that you should have on a piece of any food is the sticker that tells you that it's an avocado, and that's for people that don't recognize avocados. You shouldn't be buying foods that have got labels on it that are full of chemicals. If you can't read that label and you can't understand what's on it, you should not be buying that. It's just full of things that you really don't want to be putting into your body. Nature's food never needs a label, obviously, except if they put stickers on it so you can identify it, and quite often comes in its own wrapping. Now, there's also another added benefit from eating natural foods, and that's what we call phytochemicals. Phytochemicals are chemicals which are found within foods which are protective in nature. When foods grow out in the wild, they need to protect themselves from the sun, from insects, from pests and things like that. So they actually have chemicals that they actually create which protects them. And the use of pesticides actually stops this happening because the plant itself isn't growing its own natural protection. But if you get an organic bit of fruit or vegetable or something that actually hasn't been sprayed, it's actually full of phytochemicals because that plant had to protect itself from the world. Now the benefit of that is that when you eat it you get the same protection. So protections that are coming, that are defences, help to boost our immune systems. In some cases they're really good antioxidants, so there's so much more than just, people say, oh well, there's no difference in the vitamins on an organic or a conventional. It's not about the vitamins, it's about all these other chemicals that you get in foods that are grown naturally. So it's really important because you get that in benefit. You can continue to actually get healthier just by eating healthy food. You will not get phytochemicals in any food that is manufactured or processed. It only comes from naturally grown foods without the use of pesticides, i.e. organic foods. So how do you do this? How do we make sure we get enough nutrition? And I understand, I have lots of people who, lots of clients who say, oh, I just don't know what to eat. It's so confusing. There's just so much information out there. My kids won't eat vegetables. What am I going to give them? It's so hard. I get it. I know what it's like to be busy. I'm very busy, but one thing I do always make sure is that my kids do get a really healthy dinner every night. Well, actually all their meals are healthy. I cook all their meals for them. But it doesn't have to be that hard. And instead of focusing on the negatives of how hard it is, what you've got to do, or how much work it's going to cost, and for some people I think it's expensive, focus on what you're actually gaining. By eating healthy food and eating these foods that come from nature, you'll get an increase in energy. You'll decrease your illness. You'll sleep better. You'll have less body fat, so you won't have issues with your weight. And then for some people, you say, oh, it's so much more expensive to eat, fresh, healthy food. It's actually not. Because quite often, if you actually go and look and see how much it costs you for a basket full of veggies up at the markets compared to going and getting some of the prepackaged stuff in the supermarket, it's actually cheaper to get the vegetables. You just need to know what to do with them. And then if you look at the longer term cost savings, is you're not going to be sick. You're not going to be spending money on medications and going to doctors and everything because you're actually not going to need them because you're actually going to be getting all your health from your food. One of the things is it is important that you get a balance of protein, fats and carbohydrates. Now carbohydrates are not just bread. Vegetables are full of carbohydrates as well. Sorry, my kids just thundered up the stairs. Might have been that noise behind me. So it's just making sure you get a balance of these. And I'll just give you a quick overview of what proteins, fats and carbohydrates are. Proteins are basically anything that walks, swims or flies is protein. Nuts and seeds is protein. Legumes is protein. Beans is proteins. Some of your grain type cereals are proteins. So buckwheat and quinoa, they're actually classified as grains, but they're really seeds, so they're high in protein. So you need to put protein with every meal and snack. So it is important that you have protein all of the time. Protein is required to build an immunity, it's required for growth, it's required for so many different things, liver detoxification. Fats. Fats are found in things like avocados, in eggs, in fish, in nuts and seeds. And you do not need to be afraid of any foods that any fats that occur naturally in nature. So you don't need to be drinking low-fat milk. If you're going to drink milk, and there's other issues with milk, not its fat content, drink full cream. If you're going to have yogurt, have full. If you're going to have cheese, have full cream. When you pull the fat out, you're actually changing the structure of that food. It's now a processed food. Fat is required in foods for a reason, and particularly in milk, fat's required to absorb calcium. So if you're drinking a whole pile of low-fat milk, because it's high in calcium, and yes, it's high in calcium, that calcium is not being absorbed unless you're taking fat with it. That's why you may as well drink full cream milk. It's only got 4% fat in it anyway. It's not that much fat, but you don't need to be afraid of that fat. Butter is so much better than margarine. Margarine is a whole pile of chemicals. Butter is a natural product that comes from milk. So don't be afraid of fats. If fats occur in nature, they are fine. They're there for a reason. They're there to help absorb some of our fat-soluble nutrients. Now, obviously, on carbohydrates, as I said, vegetables are carbohydrates. But you can still have, unless you've got an issue with particular grains, you can still have some of your cereals and your grains. I do advise most people not to have wheat. I find it a lot of people can't digest it. 1 in 4 people are sensitive to it. It is a highly processed food, wheat, the wheat we have today. But if things like spelt, as I said, quinoa, your buckwheat, your kamut, your millets, they're all really great cereals. They're full of nutrients. You can actually buy most of this stuff really, really simply these days. They're in the supermarkets. I know they're in my local greengrocer. I get kamut bread every week. I can get it there. I buy spelt bread from the markets every single week. I buy spelt flour. I cook with spelt flour, rye flour. So it's quite easy to get this stuff now. Now, I do kind of understand that I've said a lot and you're saying, oh, I can't make all these changes at once. Do it simply. Just make a couple of changes every week, and just some really simple things you can do. Substitute quinoa. And for those of you who don't know what quinoa is, it's actually spelt with a Q. It's Q-U-I-N-O-A, but it says quinoa. Quinoa is a grain. It's a little round ball. It looks like a bit like sesame seeds, but you cook it like rice. And it's a really great substitute for rice or pasta or couscous, because it looks a bit like couscous. And does everybody realize that couscous is just pasta? There is actually no grain called couscous. It's just a different shaped pasta. A lot of people don't realize that. But quinoa is great. As I said, instead of rice, your pastas, you can make quinoa salads. Quinoa is also really good to use for breakfast. You can actually get quinoa flakes and cook it exactly the same as porridge, and just add a little bit of natural yogurt, some little bit of juice, some fruit or something like that. So it's also a really good breakfast. The good thing about quinoa is it's really high in protein. So you're actually increasing your protein content when you actually of your meal when you are having quinoa. Another thing you can do is add chia seeds to everything. Chia seeds, oh, by the way, with quinoa, it comes in 2 different colors. Doesn't make any difference. They're both exactly the same, but always rinse the quinoa off before you eat it, particularly if they happen to know it comes from Tasmania. Otherwise, it can be a bit bitter. It's just the dust. The dust of the quinoa is quite bitter. Most companies pre-wash, but not all. The ones in Tasmania don't pre-wash. Chia seeds. Chia seeds you can just add to everything. Chia seeds look like little black sesame seeds. You have black ones or you have white ones. Once again, no difference in the colour. The nutrient content's the same. It's just growing conditions that changes their colour. Chia seeds basically can swell up, and so you can use them as thickeners in your soups and your gravies and things like that. Full of essential fatty acids. You can just let them sit overnight in a little bit of juice, and you actually have a drink, and they're like jelly balls in the bottom of the drink. The kids love them. I've heard of someone who, whenever she gives kids ice cream, she puts them on top like they're chocolate sprinkles. Kids don't know any different. You can add them to smoothies, you can add them to stir fries, you can add them to muffins, you can just add them to anything. They have no taste, but they're full of really good nutrients. So you can get both quinoa and chia seeds at the supermarkets now. Go to the health food aisle, you'll find them. If not, you'll find them in a health food store. Quite easy. Just start adding chia seeds to every single thing that you cook. And it's just so easy. Other things you can do is use coconut milk. Coconut milk is a fantastic milk. You do not need to be afraid of the fats within coconut milk. Yes, it is a saturated fat, but it's actually a healthy saturated fat. The fat that's in it actually burns up more calories than it gives you. So coconut milk, full cream, we're not going low fat here, is actually really good for burning extra fat. So don't be afraid of coconut oil or coconut milk. You can use coconut milk on your cereals. Once again, you can use it in your cooking, and I'm going to give you a recipe in a minute where you can actually use it to make a really yummy recipe. Or you can use nut milks, almond milks, cashew milks and things like that on cereals as well. If you're already having a cereal that's got nuts and seeds in it, having a nut milk on top of it, you're not really going to notice the difference, and I will tell you how to make nut milks in 2 seconds. The other thing too is you substitute some of your highly processed sugary cereals with a good quality muesli or a seed mix cereal. One I use all the time and I recommend is called Kapai Puku, and I'll spell that for you, which is K-A-P-A-I, as Penny's typing away there, and second word is Puku, P-U-K-U. It's also known as the seed of life. It's made from, it's made in New Zealand. It's a whole pile of seeds. It does have chia seeds in it, and it's got a whole pile of other different seeds, and you can use it like a cereal, but it's quite dense. You can add it to a bit of yogurt. It'll fill you up very quickly. You can soak it overnight and make it like a bircher. You can cook it like porridge. Once again, you can add it. I add it into my smoothies every day. You can add it to stir fries. You can put it into muffins, but it's really good seed. So, and it's full of fiber, full of essential fats. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of recipes to make life a little bit easier. How to make nut milk or almond milk, or any nut milk will do this. Cashew does it really well, so does hazelnut. So everyone got a pen and paper. And I guarantee that you can do this. I make this in 20 seconds, but I have a Thermomix. If you have a blender, you can do this in 2 minutes, and it's not hard. So what you need is 1 cup of almonds, or whatever nuts you're using, and 1 litre of water. Put it into your blender and blend it. You now have nut milk. You can actually strain that milk off because it will have the meat at the bottom. Cashew milk actually almost completely dissolves because it doesn't have that hard outer skin, and it goes very creamy. But your almond milk and that, you'll have the meat at the bottom. That meat, if you're putting it on cereals, is fine. Put it over the top of your cereals. You can use it in muffins. You can use it in other cooking. But that's really good. That's a healthy bit. That's full of the fiber. That will keep in the fridge for about 4 to 5 days. So it's really easy to make your nut milk. So easy. Now, anybody want a recipe for really good, healthy chocolate? I'm sure I can hear everyone screaming yes from there. Okay, so chocolate, not the commercial stuff, the real stuff that comes from nature is called cacao. So raw cacao is such a healthy food. It is full of antioxidants. It is full of nutrients. It is rich because it is 100%. It's richer than your 80%. It's 100% cacao of chocolate. But to make some for yourself, all you need is half a cup of coconut oil, which you can get at your health food store. Half a cup of cacao powder. You should be able to find that at the health food store too. These stuff here also, if you, for those of you who live locally up on the northern beaches, the Frenchs Forest Market sells all of this. So half a cup of coconut oil, half a cup of cacao powder, and 1/4 of a cup, and I actually don't use a full 1/4 of a cup, of either agave syrup, real maple syrup, or raw honey. Or if you want, you can use stevia, but you'll have to just try for sweetness. You'll only need a small amount of sweetness because this is just the sweetener. Basically, you just melt that and mix it all together. So the coconut oil, just melt it slowly over over a saucepan, put the coconut oil in a bowl on top and just melt it down slowly. Mix through the cacao powder and whatever sweetener you're using. And I then put it into a pan. Actually, what I do is I add, just to give it a minty flavour, put 1 to 2 drops of peppermint oil in there, mix all that through too. Put it into a baking tray, put it in the freezer for about 15 minutes. It'll go hard, break it up. I keep mine in the freezer so the kids can't find it. It will melt very quickly, but it's gorgeous. It's absolutely beautiful. And that is completely healthy chocolate that you can eat whenever you like. You can't eat a lot of it because it is so rich. Another thing I'll tell you is a really good salad dressing, and this is so simple and so easy. And all you need is 1/3 of a cup of olive oil, or a good quality oil. You can use flaxseed oil as well. 1/3 of a cup of balsamic or apple cider vinegar, and 1/3 of a cup of real maple syrup, which you normally can tell because it comes from Canada. You don't want imitation maple syrup. Mix them all together, and that's a really healthy salad dressing that you can throw in every salad. You can keep it, because that'll give you a cupful, obviously. Keep it in the fridge and just use it when you need to. So there's some 3 simple recipes that are all basically made from raw ingredients, and they're all healthy for you, and they don't take very long, and they're just so easy. So I want you to realize that being healthy doesn't have to be difficult. You don't have to eat and cook these massively big things. Actually, ideally, you shouldn't be cooking too much at all. Ideal balance should be around about 60 to 70% raw or lightly cooked. I don't do raw meat, so I cook my meat, but we have salads, and my breakfast is always raw because it's a smoothie. My lunch is generally raw. Dinner, I do cook dinner, so you just get a balance that kind of works for you. Okay, so if we can move on to the next slide, and we'll go on to moving more. Have we got any questions as we're going on?
No, yeah, I think everyone was busy writing down the recipes, but I also popped them in the chat box as well, so that people can have a look at that. And it was really interesting. About a few weeks ago, I did a full vegetarian week with our family, just all recipes obviously vegetarian, and it was really interesting in that it costs much less. It saved a lot more money on our regular bill, and I felt better. The kids felt better. I could actually feel the difference within about 2 or 3 days. And it's also, I mean, even though we still eat meat, but it was awareness about what I was putting inside me and also what I was feeding the kids.
Yeah.
I found that I was much more aware. I was using triple the amount of fresh fruit and vegetables that I normally would, and I could tell the difference.
Yeah, and I don't generally, with eating vegetarian, I work on the blood type diet for that.
Mm-hmm.
I myself personally, I'm an O-type blood, and if I had to be vegetarian, I went away to Hopewood for a weekend once, and I nearly chewed someone's arm off. O-type people need to eat meat, but A-type people don't. And generally, if you actually, you'll notice how you feel. And if you feel better eating a higher vegetable diet, you generally tend to be an A-type, or you've got an A parent. Doesn't mean you don't have to. I mean, you don't have to be a strict vegetarian, but it's about getting a good balance there. And yeah, and if you're eating lots of veggies, you'll balance out what what you're getting from the meat. But I also do always have free-range grass-fed meat. I don't think that grain-fed meat is very good for us because it's just full of all these grains and chemicals that we really don't want. And honestly, it's not gluten-free either. For people who think they're getting gluten-free by eating meat that's grain-free, they're not.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And I always recommend grass-fed meat because that's cows that have roamed around and eaten grass and got fat the way they should be instead of being artificially fattened, which is what happens with the grain-fed stuff. So moving forward, move more was where we're up to now. So what do we need to move more? Our bodies are designed to move. It helps to increase the circulation of our blood and nutrients. It increases our net energy levels. It increases our immunity. It reduces our stress. It improves our mobility. So when you're getting lots of aches and pains, that's generally because you're not moving enough, unless it's like me at the moment, and I'm not moving very much because I did a really heavy workout at the gym this morning, and that's why I can't move very well. But generally, you should be able to be a lot more flexible and a lot more mobile when you're actually exercising. Statement that I heard once, and this is so true, sitting is inflammatory, and inflammation causes chronic disease and death. We must move. We were designed to move, and we should move. If we want to live longer, we need to move. So how do you do that? Once again, I hear the excuses. Don't have time, don't know what to do, don't have the energy. First thing you need to do is you need to decide that you're going to make it part of your life. Because when you make that decision, then you'll actually do something about it. But you must decide that exercise is going to be part of your life, and it needs to be part of your life. Forget the excuses. The excuse is that you're too old, you're not too old. The excuse that you don't have enough time, you've got the same amount of time that everybody else has. They're all excuses for why you can't do things. Even your people, and look, I know, I've been there, I've done it. I've said I don't have time to exercise, but I made a decision that I will exercise, and I do. I exercise. At the moment, I've been doing about 6 days a week. I'm in training for something. But you can find the time, and even if you only find a few days a week, you can find the time to move. When Dan Buettner, interesting thing is when Dan Buettner went over to these blue zones, and he talks about this in his books, and it's amazing. They're centurions that actually still go out to work every single day, and this is physical work. There was an old man, and I think he was about 103, and every day he walked 5 kilometres to work. He worked a physical job working on the farm, ploughing stuff and whatever he was doing, but it was all very physical. Then he would walk 5 kilometres back home to have lunch. Then he would chop the wood to to boil his billy or whatever it was he needed for lunch. And then in the afternoon he only worked half a day because he was one of the elders of the community. He was doing that at 103. And there's people who are now sitting around going at 35, I'm too old to exercise. You're not too old to exercise. It's just an excuse. I also saw just the other day on Facebook, I saw a woman who was over 80 and she was doing all these gymnastics. It's like she was so supple and she was moving and she was enjoying herself. So if these people can do it, you can do it. There's no reason why you can't do it. They're all excuses, and we all come up with them. As I said, I've done them all. I've done every excuse that there is. You just need to decide to make it a part of a priority in your life. Now, people say, what type of exercise is best? Honestly, the type of exercise that's best is the type that you'll do. Whatever you enjoy doing. I mean, if you've got a goal, well, then you need to do the type of exercise that's going to work towards that. I'm currently in training to run the 13-kilometre pub-to-pub run, so I'm doing a lot of running. Now, I can tell you that up until 2 years ago, I didn't actually think I could run. I've had a knee operation. I actually have one muscle missing out of one of my legs. Never been able to run, but I've been working with a trainer. I actually did the last 2 9K runs over the bridge for the last 2 years. This year I'm doing 13 Ks. I ran 10 the other day, which is the most I've ever run in my whole life. But you just need to decide to do it and actually then just start doing it. And the stronger you get, the easier these things become. And you just put it into your diary. And if you don't have you don't have to run a 13K run. That's just my challenge. If all you want to do is to be healthier, maybe all you need to do is actually just go for a walk. But walking at a pace that actually increases your heart rate and that you're actually a bit short on breath. It's not just a stroll around the neighbourhood looking at everybody else's yards. You do need to get increase your circulation. For some people, exercising with a friend or as part of a team is a motivator because you actually become accountable. And if you're part of a team, you can't not turn up, because the team's depending on you. Same if you've got a friend, and it's a friend who, will do it if you're doing it, so the both of you have to do it. And if one doesn't do it, the other one won't do it. You hold yourself accountable. If you can't do it yourself, exercise with a friend. So what I want you to do, and this is a challenge I'm putting out to you, anyone who's not exercising regularly now, is actually to make the commitment to make exercise a priority at least 4 times a week for at least 30 minutes. Now that's really what we're talking here. 2 hours out of a whole week. It's not that long. Make it longer if possible. Look, if you can just make it incidental and it's just you running around the park with the kids, that's fine. That's something. But it's don't sit at home saying I don't have time, I can't do it. Just do it. Book it into your diary, the same as you would any other appointment, and turn up for it. So, if you have appointments you put in your diary, you're going to go and, you've got an appointment with so-and-so, you'll turn up. This time you've got an appointment with yourself to exercise, turn up for it. Also, have a goal, have a reason for why you're exercising, because if you've got a reason, and even if it is you want to get healthier, or you want to lose some weight, or you've got a challenge and you want to join me on the pub to pub, you're welcome to do so. Or you can do the city to surf, whatever it is. Have a goal, because when you've got a goal, that actually helps you, keeps you motivated. And for more impact, basically putting it on a vision board will help that even more, because when you've got something on a vision board, you'll see it. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide, please, Penny. We're almost nearly done. So know your purpose. Why is this important? If you don't know your purpose, you don't really know why you're here. Now, everyone was put on this earth for a reason. We all have something to contribute. Every single person is important, and without you on this earth, the world will be different. Okay? So when you know your purpose, it becomes easier to plan, to prioritize, to make decisions, because if you don't know your purpose, you'll get stressed, you'll get overwhelmed because you're just taking on too much. Stress occurs when your reality doesn't equal your beliefs. And with a purpose, basically you actually can allow your reality and your beliefs to actually come together. In the blue zones, this is one of the key things Dan Buettner found, is that all the centurions had a purpose. They had a reason to get out of bed every single day. Most of them were seen as the wise people of the community, so the rest of the community used to come to them for advice every single day, and that's one of the reasons why some of them only work in the mornings and they're home in the afternoons, basically open session, come in and have a chat with me. But they've got a reason for living. That's their purpose. So people say, well, how do I find out what my purpose is? It's a very simple exercise that you can do, and I have actually done I'll quickly run through it here, but I've actually done a full recording of how to do this, plus a fact sheet, and it is on the resources page of the Amber Tree website, and I'll give you the website details in a minute. But I've actually done a full exercise in this, so you can go through and do it in full. But basically, a simple thing you can do is imagine, this is a visualization exercise. Imagine it's your 70th birthday. All of your friends, your family, your work colleagues, everybody that you've had any significant contact with in your whole life is in a room. You are on the outside of the room listening in. They're in there talking. What are those people saying about you? Do you like what they're saying? Are they saying you were too busy for them? Are they saying that you had, that you were a great worker, that you were a fantastic mum? What are they saying about you? Listen, really listen to what they were saying and write that down. Now, if you don't like what is being said, then you need to know what it is that you want them to say. What do you want them to be saying about you on your 70th birthday? That then will give you closer to what your purpose is. It'll tell you why you're here, what gets you out of bed every single day. You need a reason to get out of bed, because otherwise you eventually won't. And this is one of the key things for living a longer life, because we live now and we work, we do all these things, but then what happens when the kids grow up and they move out of home? What happens when you don't have a job? Your sense of purpose goes, because your purpose was always to work, or your purpose was always to parent. You actually still have a purpose, and the purpose is within you. So sometimes it can evolve, but really think about what your purpose is. So what I'd ask you to do is take some time and actually sit down and write down what your purpose is. Now, if you're a business owner or you're in business, it's very similar to writing a vision or a mission statement. It's the reason why you're here. And then if you make your decisions based on what your purpose are, you'll actually make better decisions. Instead of saying yes to everything, you'll be able to say no to things that don't meet your purpose, and you have less overwhelm. You'll be able to prioritize tasks and events and where the direction of where you're going based on what your purpose is. It just gives you a lot of clarity. So let's move on to the next slide, which I think says, are there any questions? So if there are any questions, because that's the end of most of the content, please just write them in the side box. As you're just doing that, I did promise earlier that I would have some more information for people that wanted more. And if you want to make a change in your life to live a happy and long life and want to reduce the stress in your life, or you want more information to help your family to be happy and healthy, I have actually put together a Secret Mums Business, which is an 8-part online series which has ebooks, it has workbooks. It covers things like nutrition, exercise, organisation, work and family balance. The workbooks help you actually implement the changes in your life to make it a little bit easier, and they're specific for what you need in your life. I also have additional membership resources and discounts. There's an online forum where you can ask me questions and get answers from me. Also thrown in a bonus recipe book, which I haven't created these recipes. I've got them from lots of different places. They're the ones I use with my clients in clinic. And I've also got a DVD download there of a DVD I made earlier in the year on how hormones affect your waist. Now, this program is almost ready for launch. It's not quite ready. But if you're interested, if you go to Secret Mums Business, or one word, .net.au, and go to the Get the Secret page. If you click on the Purchase Now button, you won't be purchasing anything now, but you can enter your details and receive an online course which will be just increasing your energy levels naturally, and you'll get the bonus DVD about the hormones. Once I've launched the course, I'll be in contact with you and then to send everything out. But if you decide to change your mind, that's not a problem. No payment will actually come out until you actually get the course. So, you'll still get to keep your free energy course and also the DVD. And I've also given Penny one free course valued at over $700 for one lucky person who's on the call tonight. But I'm sure she'll talk to you about that shortly.
Absolutely.
So, do we have any questions?
None have actually popped up. Oh, here we go. Beg your pardon. So do you have any tools for reflecting on your purpose? One of the girls is asking, just that my initial thoughts were to separate my purpose into parenting and work. That's a really good question.
Yeah, and it's actually good to do that and also have a family purpose too.
Okay, so actually do separate it out.
Purpose. Yeah, because I think it gives you a bit more clarity, because having your personal purpose may have a work purpose in it, but if you can have a separate work purpose as well, and I do think as a family, and maybe you and your partner, may not necessarily be your children if they're young, but maybe your family should have a purpose as well. And that's things like, we're going to stay together as a unit. We eventually want to be living, on a 60,000 acre block of land and growing around herbs or something like that. But it means that when it comes to making decisions, if you've got that purpose in mind, every step that you make, whether or not it's to do with work, your personal or your family, you know where you're moving to. It's just like, as I said, it's like having your business plan, your vision and your mission all put in. We do that for our businesses. We don't do that for ourselves.
Another a good book that I have been reading lately, which would certainly helped me with the parenting purpose, because it's very focused on that side of thing, is The Parent Manifesto by Jodie Benvenista, her name is, and it's you can get it through parentwellbeing.com.au, and that would help you. That I've gone through the first half of that book, and basically you write something very similar in a parenting sort of mission statement and what you want for your family. So that's a really good tool that you can use. Doesn't have anything to do with work or life or anything like that, but it is the parenting side too. So that was a really good.
And because I think as mums we actually have lots of different facets, and they don't always. Sometimes there can be conflict because we don't really know what we're trying to do, and that's where you can get your work-life balance. And you have problems with getting that work-life balance right because you haven't defined your purpose. Because for some people, being a mum is a really strong purpose and work's not as strong. For other people, it's the other way round. You can still have a purpose on both, but one will have a priority over the other. And it's okay that if your work's more important than being, I'm saying that's not more important than being a family, but there might be more focus on it. Because in a few years' time, that might actually change because your overall purpose is still to do whatever it is. It can shift.
Yep.
Obviously, depending on where you are in your life.
That's great. Okay. Well, as you can see on the page on the slide that we brought up there's lots of touch points to be able to get in touch with Angela, and also in touch with the resources that Angela has available for us. So secretmumsbusiness.net.au is what Angela was just speaking about. She's got a Facebook group as well for Secret Mums Business, and also for the Amber Tree. I'm a member, or a liker, you call it, on Facebook, and I love Angela's updates and things like that. I always look forward to them. One always pops up at 6 a.m. in the morning because she's crazy like me and works early. But there's some really good information on there, and very useful. And as we said, yes, Angela has given us a one free registration to Secret Mum's Business, to the online course, the 8-part course, which sounds amazing, and I'm really looking forward to testing that out too. But somebody who was online tonight will be a winner of that as well. So I'll announce that on our Facebook page, and I'll let you know, Angela, too, so you can spread the word. Mm-hmm. Lovely. All right. Well, thank you so much. I could speak to you all night, Angela. For those who, if you weren't taking notes while you were going, I was typing up a lot of the notes there as well. So you actually get access to that, to what was said through that. So I can email the transcript pretty much of what was typed throughout the actual webinar itself. So it's got a lot of that information in there. So thank you very much, Angela. I really appreciate you giving up your time as well.
Thank you for having me.
And for those of you, we've got our next webinar is in August, and this one is all about cyber safety and keeping your family and your children and your teenagers safe online, which is certainly a hot topic at the moment. And that will be presented by Leonie Smith, who is the cyber safety lady. And you can get some more information about Leonie at the cybersafetylady.com.au. And we'll have registration details up by the end of the week for you. And once again, remember, it's a free one, so feel free to register and take part. All right, thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the webinar tonight. There will be a survey that will take you about 12 seconds to complete when you actually log out of the webinar. But once again, Angela and I really thank you for taking the time out and coming and listening to us. And we'll have the recording of the webinar up on the Working Mums Masterclass website within the week. So thank you very much, everyone, and we'll speak soon. And thanks, Angela. I'll catch up with you soon too.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Angela.
Okay,
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.